Yes, here we are again. Our fine feathered friends. Welcome, welcome. My name is Quinn Jacobson, and this is the Studio Q show live. And welcome to another late October edition of this. I cannot believe that it's the 23rd of October. I keep looking at these dates and I'm thinking, oh my God, what am I missing here? But here we are, October 23rd. Hey, Jeffrey. Hey, Kagi. Welcome into the live show. I'm glad I have someone to talk to. We've got some people pouring in on YouTube now. Good to see everybody. Mr. Johansson, welcome. And Thilo, welcome. Good evening. Good to see you from Japan. We're going to do something today that I think you'll find interesting. It's not going to be in-depth because it's the Calotype process, and you'll know what I mean after we're finished with this. But we can continue on with it if it's interesting. I had a book by James Mudd next week to look at, going back to the colloidal albumin process or the Taupinot process. He's got some interesting things to say, but we'll figure that out during the week and kind of go from there. Let's jump right in. We're good to go on this. Saludos from Chile. Well, welcome, Chile. Good to see you. Good to see you. We're going to go over here and jump into my little PowerPoint. Not PowerPoint. I call it PowerPoint, but it's really on the Google side of things, I guess. And here we are, the 23rd of October. Like I said, it's Saturday here. I don't care when you're watching or listening to this. You're going to get the same thing out of it. But you like to come in live and ask questions and interact. That's always nice. Hello, Mr. Zimmerman. Good to see you, brother. Mark Zimmerman has joined us, or at least attempting to. I'm sure he'll hang around. I have a little bit of a change to this. Not too much. Well, no, I don't, actually. We're going to look at the Pelegry process in depth. This is the most common process of the Calotype. We're going to get into this, and this is kind of a convoluted thing, and there's a lot of, it's just like everything, right? Political. There's a lot of opinion on what's best, what's not. There's so few people working in the Calotype process. I'll show you what I've done. We'll talk about it. We are going to look at Alan Green's book. Not really look at it, but I'm going to show you what I made from Alan Green's book, and we'll talk a little bit about that on Calotypes. We're going to do the social news and media. We're going to do technical Q&A and recommended reading and recommended watching. Hello, Oliver. Guten Tag or Guten Abend or Guten Afternoon. Yeah, I guess it's Guten Abend. Good evening. There you go. Good evening from Germany. There you go, Oliver. Good evening. Guten Abend to you. So let's jump into this. We are looking at, let's check this out. I am closer and closer every day. I've been trying to make this happen. Thanks, Jeffrey. I've been trying to make this happen. We're putting in the ceiling joists right now. Insulation. I got to do some wiring either today or tomorrow. You can see my spinning door there. It's all framed out and ready to go. This is a little deceiving. This is a kind of a wide angle shot. This is a large dark room, a very tall room as well, too. And then on this side, I have another 2/3 of the building, which will be the studio. The north window light is right there. You can see shining in. It's just absolutely gorgeous. I am so excited to get into this and do this. I am just chomping at the bit. So I'm doing my best, but you got to do it right. You got to make sure your stuff is right. So we're looking at finishing here. I don't know, maybe a couple of weeks. We'll see how it goes. We've got really beautiful weather right now, so we can make it work. Hello, Jan from Norway. Good to see you, brother. Yeah, Guten Abend, Oliver. Guten Abend. Wash hands. Nice. I don't know what that means, Mark, but good. So that's my little update on my studio. Dark room's getting closer, a couple weeks away, wiring, sheetrock installation, etc. And Jeffrey, thank you for this. Jeffrey sent me this week from Petapixel. I don't get to look at a lot of this stuff online anymore. I'm busy, obviously wrapped up with some stuff. But man, Deanna Arbus, one of my favorite all-time photographers, they've actually put a statue, erected a full-size statue of her in Central Park in New York, which is really cool. She's deserving of that, plus much, much more. You can read there. You can go over to Petapixel and read the whole article. Jeffrey sent that over. I appreciate that. And if you guys have stuff that's of interest to the community, please pass it along. I'm happy to share it here, even though we only have a few hundred views, on these videos. They live on forever, and people come back and look at them and find stuff. I get that all the time. So share stuff. I like that second paragraph. As a New Yorker through and through, Arbus was a regular visitor at Central Park. One of my favorite images is a little kid with the 2 grenades standing there, just emotional, right? She loved her twin lens reflex, right? TLR camera and her big old pop strobe. You can go over there and look at those images. There's a lot more on there. So that's up there. I appreciate you sharing that, Jeffrey. That's awesome. Oh, Mark says, sorry, thought it was an applause emoji, but wash your hands too. Darkroom Studio looks great. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you. I do. I appreciate that. And I am too. I'm applauding these efforts. This is the last kind of big step we have to do up here. We got to put our gate up, but that's a different story. So anyway, Deanne Arbus, wonderful photographer, very heavily influenced me. Undergraduate school, I got to know her, read everything I could on her, looked at everything I could with her and on her with her work, and really good stuff. I got so much feedback this week. I posted this on social media, and so you guys that aren't on social media, number one, God bless you. And number two, I wanted to share it here so you can see what's going on. I haven't yet cut the cord yet on social media. People gave me a lot of pushback on when I said I want to go off that stuff. But anyway, I posted this up. This was really interesting. This has been a while back. I think it came up in a memory or something on Facebook. This is, I used to go to CU Boulder, Colorado, University of Colorado, Boulder, Colorado. I went to all the unis and colleges and did this stuff. Did all kinds of stuff with higher education around here. Not so much anymore with COVID and all that. I haven't done any of that. But this was a few years ago, 3 years ago, I guess. This is a bright ambrotype. I was showing them, and I left this with them, I believe. I was showing them how you could overexpose a positive, and they're really great to contact print on modern developing out paper like Ilford or Kodak or whatever. They're just absolutely beautiful. Silver gelatin prints with bright ambrotypes are just stunning. They're gorgeous. But I decided to try a little experiment with this. I think Alex was with me. Alex is the professor holding the hat there. He teaches, I think he was the head of photography up there. But I added 3 drops of potassium dichromate, a 10% solution, a salting solution for this. Big difference. This is a bright ambrotype, as you can see, and it shouldn't print this good on salt, but it did. It really printed nicely. So when I talk about you're not going to be able to print on salt and albumin with a negative, it's not dense enough. It's not a perfect, it was a beautiful print. It's not absolutely perfect because it is a bright ambrotype, and even with the dichromate in it, it hit the density harder, but it still wasn't quite there. But man, it surprised me. And then someone posted, I think it was Shin that posted, what about fuming that paper? And I talked a little bit about that raises the pH, which will take on more silver reduction and chloride, et cetera, et cetera. I haven't done that. You could try that. But I just got so much feedback on this and interest in this that I wanted to share it up here. Hey, Steve Wilson, good to see you, brother. So anyway, that's a salt print from a bright ambrotype, which is really technically you shouldn't be able to do that, but with some potassium dichromate in the sizing salting solution. So here we go. This is the calotype process. We kind of know what it is. It's really important to distinguish and talk about that it was the first negative to positive process, which Talbot invented, basically. Daguerre in 1839 released the daguerreotype, which is a direct positive on, a brass-coated, silver-coated brass sheet of metal, iodized and bromized usually, and then developed over mercury. That's a direct positive. This is a very important advent here because it's the negative to positive process. Now, the real important part here is I just highlighted a couple of things. This is out of I think it was out of a Scottish, university in Scotland. I should have credited that. I don't know why I didn't. But anyway, the calotype negative process was sometimes called the Talbotype. You'll hear that occasionally after its inventor, It was not Talbot's first photographic process introduced in 1839. Remember, he did the photogenic drawings, right? Those are very different than this. And then there's even a clarification on what, we'll try to break that down for you a little bit. It gets a little complicated about, what's a paper negative versus a calotype versus a photogenic drawing, et cetera, et cetera. You can go do your own research on this, and I advise you to if you're interested in this, but it's quite a history here, and it's really important. Don't get me wrong. This is very important in the processes we work in and just the advent of photography alone. But he released this. Talbot divided this calotype in the autumn of 1840. I think he released, mid-1841 and made it the subject of the patent. The patent did not extend to Scotland. This is one of the things that Talbot's really known for, is this litigious, he was illegal. I'm going to sue you. He tried to sue Daguerre. He tried to sue everybody, thinking that they were all using his process, the calotype process. But they weren't, and it kind of faded out, and he kind of got a bad reputation from it, I think. But the base of the calotype negative, rather than glass or film to which we have become accustomed, was high quality writing paper. So we're making these negatives on paper, right? And then there's some variations we're going to look at. The sheet of paper was carefully selected to have a smooth, uniform texture whenever possible to avoid the watermark. The first stage conducted in candlelight was to prepare what Talbot called his iodized paper. The paper was washed over a solution of silver nitrate and dried by gentle heat. When nearly dry, it was soaked in a solution of potassium iodide for 2 or 3 minutes, rinsed again, dried. As long as this iodized paper was stored carefully, it could be kept for some time. It was generally prepared in batches ahead of time. Now, out of all the historic processes, ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you, and you'll see my example or one of them up here, I will tell you this is the most difficult, the most arduous of wet plate. Seems like punching a button on a Polaroid camera compared to this. There's so many problems you can run into. I mean, they are endless. And if you don't have patience, and if you want that quick feedback, like direct positives from the wet plate process, this probably wouldn't be a process for you. But if you like this kind of poetic look, this softer look, and negative to positive, of course, you can do multiple different types of prints and things like that. This may be something that interests you. Good morning, Facebook user. I don't know who that is, but good morning. I haven't found that keeping this paper too long works very well, but this is what they're claiming here, or he claimed. Immediately before taking a photograph, a fresh solution of gallo nitrate of silver, and we know what this is, right? This was made up of equal quantities of solution silver nitrate and gallic acid. The solution was unstable and had to be used right away. Under weak candlelight, a sheet of iodized paper was coated with this solution, left to sit for about 30 seconds, then dipped in water. It was then partially dried in dark, often using blotting paper. The calotype paper could be employed completely dry, but more sensitive when moist. That's what I found I went through this for about a year in Europe. Around 2009, 2010, I worked in calotypes quite a bit. And I found that moist paper sandwiched between 2 pieces of glass in my plate holder, and again, you'll see an example I have up here. Definitely moist is better. And in any case, had to be exposed in the camera within a few hours of preparation. Talbot found that he could sometimes put it away for future use, but its keeping qualities were never predictable. Oh, Doug Darling. Hey, good morning, Doug. Good to see you, brother. It's been a little bit. So let's talk about some of the basic processes for producing these paper negatives or calotypes. I fear saying calotypes all the time, but because everybody has a little bit different view of what that means. And I'm a stickler on verbiage sometimes too. Sometimes it means a lot, especially if you're talking historical context. But in this case, we're going to look at the, I don't know how to say this gentleman's name, Guillot-Sanguez process, or Guillot-Sanguez process. This is in Green's book, the one I have here, the one I showed last week. This is the process that you're going to see what I worked in. Greenlaw's version seems very, very popular. It's close to Legray's wax paper negatives. And then Legray's process, and we're going to look at some of Martin Becker's stuff at the end of this show, his Dubai's work, and he does wax paper negatives. And Pelegry's process. This is probably the most famous or popular, not famous, most popular or most used process to make calotypes today. And when we talk about calotypes or paper negatives, people making them, I could probably count on two hands the number of people doing this. So, hey, good evening, Hank, Mr. Peters. Good to see you, brother. So that's what we're going to look at here, the Pelegry process when we get to that. Let me start with this. As you can see, this is, or does it have a date on it? Maybe not. Well, I posted it on the Calotype board. Half-plate Calotype, Fernheim, Germany, Deutschland. Pfarrer Anton Darmstadtstraße is the name of the negative. And here's the geek numbers and info on this. This is what, 11 years ago. Time was 1500, hour 3 p.m., 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 26 September 2010. Wow, just over 11 years ago. It was overcast and cool, 15 C, about 50 Fahrenheit. The paper was clear print, 1000 H, 16-pound vellum. We're going to talk a little bit about the papers. And the paper prep, acidified for 2 hours in a 10% solution of citric acid, washed for 1 hour in distilled water. Sized and iodized in 1% gelatin and 4% Ki for 8 minutes. And sensitized for 3 minutes on an Agno 3 bath, floated. Exposure was 3 minutes at F5.6. Developed for 10 minutes with a 0.8% solution of gallic acid, floated. Washed, fixed in 12% hypo for 20 minutes. And 2 baths, 10 minutes each. And then you can see, and some of these guys are really, Richard was really into Jones. A lot of these guys are like the Becca, the leading calotypist. Becca's not on this board, but you can see here, this guy in Norway tried to do something, and he talks about that. But anyway, that's the preface to this. It's just kind of it's not a terribly exciting calotype. But there it is. There's a negative, the paper calotype on the left, and the positive print on the right. This, you can see I had some staining up in the top right. Even with citric acid on the paper and everything, it's still stained. It still happens that way. Sometimes there's a lot of problems, like I said, that you can go through that. But this is the process out of Green's book. I didn't have time to compile all that this week. So, and after looking at it, the Pelegry process is probably better for most people anyway. But you can look at that in Green's book. That's it, the example of his stuff. So here's the Pelegry process from 1879. This is translated by Mr. Jones there, found in, the French book from Eugene Troutat, 1879. The method of A. Pelegry. The choice of paper was once very important because its production was uneven and generally poor. Today, it's easy to find, especially at the premise of Mr. Marion 10. So he's talking about how important the paper is. Today, we don't have that problem. You can see here, I put the 3 best papers up there that you can use. Bienfang, Graphics 360. The clear print vellum is what I used on the calotype you just saw up there. And then this 90-gram vellum from Canson is great paper as well, too. So any of these 3 paper for calotypes works just great. Tyler said something here. Let's see what he says. Capturing the Light by Watson and Rappaport is a fascinating account of the early days of photography and how Tyler got in this situation. Oh, well, there you go. Thank you for sharing that, Tyler. That's a good, I'm going to have to look that up. That fascinating stuff. If you like the drama of historic photography, Talbot probably leads the pack in that. But thank you for sharing that, Tyler. So he quotes, he says, it is enough to take a piece of each type of paper to try to apply them to a positively sensitized sheet of paper and to expose them to the light as if you were going to make a print. The shade of the paper will be more or less striped, grainy, or clear due to the homogeneity of the papers being tested. The generalness of the paper being tested. By doing this, you will know in advance one of the essential parts of the good effect, which you can expect the paper you will use and be able to choose one which will with best confidence, that's to say the one which will give a more even and clear tint. All 3 of these match that. We don't have that problem today. You may have some starches or something in the papers different. All 3 of these are well qualified for calotype. It just depends on which version you want to use. So let's look at the actual recipe of making calotypes. So there's two formulas here in Pelegry. You can choose the rice water is the first one, and we'll look at the second one on the next page. But here goes. The rice water, 1,000 mils, potassium iodide, potassium bromide, and iodine. We talked about how to make iodine before. If you get into some of these processes, you'll want to be able to do that on your own because it's difficult to procure, especially in America. Sugar of milk, that is lactose, right? You can get lactose anywhere. Lactose, they call it sugar of milk. That's a translation. So there's the first one. The next one, the second option would be a serum of milk, clarified, or whey. Again, sugar of milk, the lactose, potassium iodide, potassium bromide, and iodine. So those are the first two basic, you call it a sizing, a bromoiodized sizing. So you have the sizing is actually the whey or the rice. And then you have the salts, the lactose, the sugar, and the iodine. And I think the iodine is even kind of optional, but after mixing either formula, filter it carefully into a scrupulously clean porcelain dish, large enough to receive the paper previously cut to desired size. We then immerse the sheets one after the other while avoiding air bubbles. A lot like what we do with a lot of these sizing and salting solutions. The paper is left to soak for 15 to 20 minutes in each dish. Then each sheet is removed, air dried by suspension. The iodized paper, if pressed flat, kept away from heat and moisture, keeps indefinitely and will take on a pink or sometimes almost blue tint. I have them turned purplish, kind of a magenta-ish color. I used to have some of them. I haven't run into any of them down in my studio yet, but depending on the nature of the size. Sensitized with the following formula. So now we're going to get into the sensitization. So you've got a 10% solution of silver nitrate and 40 mils of glacial acetic acid in that. So that's where we start with the silver. The paper is then washed in water, just as with the dry tannin collodion process. Then immersed into a solution of tannin, thus composed. So here we go. Now we got 0.5% of or 5% solution of tannin. There's the milk again, the sugar rather, the sugar of milk, lactose, and heat and filter with care. So that you make that, you go through that process, and you put a tannin layer on it, basically, kind of like a binder. After the bath, the sheets are pressed between fresh sheets of blotting paper, then dried by suspension. So you get the bulk of it off, hang them up. The paper is gummed onto a sheet of cardboard with a sheet of glass pressed behind and exposed in a special frame. Exposure times are still slow. And then development, all right? And here's the thing. If you're going to try the calotype process, it's really important that you have two pieces of clear glass, whatever format you're working with, that you can lay the paper, the sensitized paper between, put the glass on, and put it in your plate holder. You need, kind of like a vacuum press, you need to keep that stuff flat. Development is performed by separately immersing each sheet into the fine solution, 250 mils of distilled water and 1 gram of pyrogallic acid. To which, and now here we go with kind of a redeveloper again. You see this over and over again in the old manuals. Distilled water, 100 mils, silver nitrate, 3 grams, and 1 gram of citric acid. So you got your restrainer, you got your silver, and you got your distilled water. The image forms rapidly, and at once, at the desired point, it is washed carefully. Developed proof is fixed with thiosulfate and washed abundantly. Same process that we always go through. If you're interested in trying the calotype process, start out with the Pelegry, or you could go to Green's book and try the Guillot Sanguez process like I did. That wasn't too bad either. But this Pelegry process seems to be a lot faster in development, a little better exposure time, et cetera, depending on what paper you use. But try that. If you're going to try the Pelegry process, I think that would be a good place to start. Pretty straightforward. I mean, there's nothing here that we haven't covered before. I know that's a quick, high-level overview, but I got some other things I want to show you with the Calotype process. Try to introduce you to it. If you like that soft look, if you like that reproducible, if you like to print, and I know a lot of folks in here do, you don't like that. Well, everybody likes the one-off process, but again, you're limited by just making positives. You're really, in my opinion, you're really cutting, if you really love historic processes and you want to venture out and you want to do something to see where your interests might lie, if you stop at positives, you're not, I think you're cutting yourself short. I really do. Because at some point, I guarantee you, I've done this long enough, at some point you're going to get, quote, bored of the positive process. And I don't mean that in like, no interest in it anymore. You're going to want, it's a natural thing for human beings to want to progress. And negatives are a natural progression. I'm not saying you have to start with a calotype, but you can start wherever you'd like. And there's so many options out there, searching for that perfect negative for your process. That's what I'll be doing coming very soon. And then I posted a blog the other day talking about in 2022, I'm primarily going to be working full time and making these negatives and working in this project full time. I don't, no jobs for me, none of that. Just I'm going to be working on my art. And so if I wouldn't be able to do that with the positive process at my point, right? I could, but it doesn't give me enough variations. I need, I'm really interested in this colloidal albumin process and albumin on glass process. I really need to find that perfect negative to do the Rollins oil prints with. And that's what I'll be searching for. So my point is if you're limiting yourself to positives, that's fine for as long as you need to. But at some point, you're going to have to go from the milk to the meat, I think. And no pun intended on the milk here. We just talked about a lot of whey and lactose. Okay. If you have any technical questions, feel free to ask them anytime here on anything. I talked last week or the week before about my friend Martin Becca. Look at that double D. I'm kicking in here, guys. That double D on Dubai. How did I miss that? I hate typos. Dubai Transmutations is the name of his book. If you can find this, even to look through it, he went and did these amazing cityscapes of Dubai in Calotype. And they say, let's read this real quick. With this photo series, Martin Becca interrogates us about our sense of how we organize the present and our hopes for the future. Using photographic processes that date from the invention of photography, he disorients the beholder by setting up an illusion of collapsed time. Dubai, for example, paradise of globalization, with its monumental architecture and town planning, its reputation as a symbol of modernity, wealth, and success is projected into a different space-time. Becca shows us the city as if we were looking at it from the perspective of the distant future, a kind of archaeology of the present day. The Dubai Transmutation series was made in the spring of 2008 using a 40 by 50 centimeter, 16 by 20 for you Americans or imperialists, empirical measurements, 40 by 50 centimeter view camera and waxed paper negatives. So he uses the Pelegry process, the wax negatives, calotypes, right? They're wax paper negatives. The process was invented in 1851 by Pelegry. Notice that timing, 1851, the same year Mr. Archer released the wet collodion process. And this is why, and the French friends on here will argue the point, and Becca will too, that Pelegry invented the wet collodion process. It was Archer that just kind of took his notes and went forward with it. Pelegry became interested in these wax paper negatives and released that invented it in 1851. It is not very suitable for temperatures as high as those in Dubai. And you can watch this whole video. I'm only going to show you a portion, but you can watch how he set up his darkroom and how he managed all this, right? Wax paper negatives in Dubai, right? 50 degrees, right? As high as those in Dubai. It involves a method of working quite different from gelatin silver or present-day digital photography. The photographer has to make the negatives at dawn on the day of the shoot and develop them in the same evening. The prints made after returning home are contact prints on salted paper with gold toning. That's a little vague. Martin has his own kind of, they're salted, of course, in their tone, but Martin has his own kind of special albumin printing process for these images from the Pelegry's wax paper negatives. But so if you can find that book, Dubai Transmutations, check it out. I want to show you just a piece of this. I started it a little bit in. This is from a conference in Paris that Martin did on Calotype. I just want to show you a little bit of it. I'll just stop randomly, not randomly, but I'll stop when we get to a point where we can talk about it. So I'm going to mute myself and we're going to watch this for a minute.
Des 5 à 12 jours. Dans les traités des 1852 et 54, la conservation revendiquée va des 15 jours à 1 mois. Les observations que j'ai pu faire sur les terrains tant en France avant mon départ qu'et par la suite ne corroborent pas les informations les plus optimistes Pelegry. Dans les climats tempérés européens, au-delà de 5-6 jours, j'ai eu à faire face à la montée d'une granulation marquée et les négatifs devenaient inutilisables 1 ou 2 jours après. Dans les températures du Moyen-Orient, après une première déconvenue, l'évidence s'est fait jour et les constats étaient sans appel. La durée de vie d'un négatif papier ciré ne dépassait pas la journée. Dès lors, je devais sensibiliser mes négatifs à l'aube, photographier dans la journée, développer et fixer les soirs même. Les difficultés inattendues attachées à la durée des conservations des négatifs sensibilisés m'ont obligé à modifier toute l'organisation des travaux que j'avais imaginé pour cette expédition. Dans l'organisation qui s'est donc imposée à moi, fixer des négatifs au thiosulfate de sodium, opération qui doit être suivie d'un lavage soigné, est devenue inenvisageable sans une perte de temps considérable. La nécessité d'une stabilisation provisoire au bromure de potassium s'est imposée comme alternative alors que je n'ai anticipé l'emploi de cette procédure que comme une roue de secours que je n'imaginais pas devoir utiliser. Je ne l'ai testé que rapidement avant de partir. Cette stabilisation est décrite dans de nombreuses sources primaires, mais je dois avouer que je n'en avais pas saisi au préalable tout l'intérêt. Cela s'est avéré pour moi être un gain de temps très appréciable et par la même occasion un éclairage précieux sur les raisons de l'emploi de cette procédure par les pionniers de la photographie. En même temps, ça a été aussi une source d'inquiétude jusqu'au mon retour et les fixages définitifs des négatifs au thiosulfate de sodium. J'ignorais comment se comportaient des négatifs stabilisés par les bromures de potassium sous des températures élevées. On voit au travers de cette expérience que les conditions extérieures influent sur les pratiques photographiques. C'est un éclairage sur des raisons, des choix techniques et des modes opératoires qui n'apparaissent pas d'emblée comme les plus efficients. Alors, les deuxièmes points, je vais les consacrer à la reconstitution que j'avais fait pour qu'on puisse effectuer un certain nombre d'analyses pour la recherche, oui, c'est presque fini, pour la recherche que nous avons menée. Alors, pour les besoins d'analyse, nous avons reconstitué ensemble avec Céline Daher et Marie-Angélique Langui plusieurs procédés négatifs papier et fabriqué des dizaines de négatifs qui ont servi aux tests et mesures. Nous nous sommes focalisés sur les procédés utilisés. Merci, attends, je repasse. Oui, c'est bon, la présentation. Voilà. Pour les besoins d'analyse,
I'm going to stop it there. If you want to see this whole thing, it's on YouTube. Just go to. I know it's in French, but you can capture most of it. Understand what he's doing there. To see these prints in person, I've been in his darkroom, his home. Like I said, we went to Biev every year. Well, we were there pretty much every year. Have dinner at his house and his great family, his wife, and go into his darkroom and see what he's doing. And these wax paper negatives are just amazing. I mean, they're as sharp as any collodion negative on glass or anything that I've seen anyway. Really amazing, friendly guy, just a great human being, and very talented as well. Check out his book. I've got some private videos that I could show you at some point in time. I was trying to think of how I could put them up to let you have access to them, where he goes out and he makes this historic. He recreates a calotype that was made, I think, in 1850, 1851. of this scene in France. Really interesting stuff. But anyway, I wanted to show you a little bit about Martin Becca, his Dubai Transmutations book. If you can't get the book, at least, and I know you can if you're interested, but at least go look at his Cityscapes of Dubai, Calotype wax paper negatives. They're absolutely amazing. And as a photographer, I think you'll find them fascinating. Chad, let's see what Chad says. Thanks for your time. Absolutely, you're very welcome. Unrelated to today's talk, no problem. I have a question about using gilsonite on the image side of the glass plate, I noticed that in the recipes for Japanning tin type metal at home, there are multiple baking steps. A couple, yeah, Is there any benefit to baking a finished plate? As I type this, I recall all the issues with nitrocellulose film and wonder if the flammable nature of the film would keep the temperatures limited too low to benefit from baking. Okay, great question, Chad. Not the first time I've been asked this. What Chad's talking about here, he's talking about two different things here. Gilsonite is asphaltum, road tar, basically, and we use that on a thin sheet of iron to make tin types. We have a mixture of Canadian balsam, some plasticizer. We dilute it down. We pour it on. We bake it off. We bake it. We heat it up to make the mixture kind of a amalgam of all these compounds. Then we pour it onto that thin sheet of metal. We can kind of paint it on the back for the first coat. We pour it on the image side, drain it off, let it stand and dry, and then we put it in an oven or bake it. And what we're doing is we're curing that asphaltum. We're hardening that asphaltum, making it basically innocuous or non-reactive to collodion, to silver, to any of that. So you can't have your steel plate won't interact with your silver, etc. Chad's talking about using a similar mixture. I like the angel gilding asphaltum diluted down. And he's talking about pouring it on the image side of the plate, where your silver is versus the glass side, and getting this look and feel. Let me do something here. Let me answer your question first. Those are two different things. You do not need to harden an asphaltum back ambrotype. There's no need for that. So you wouldn't want to put your ambrotype covered with gilsonite into an oven and bake it, because there's no need for that. You don't need to harden that. All it is like putting a piece of black cardboard behind there, a piece of velvet, whatever you want. If you're going to do your image side, there's a lot of controversy about this. I would recommend varnishing the image side first and then pouring the asphaltum on. But you're still going to hear people talking about, oh, it'll peel off. You'll be dead and long gone by the time that happens. So unless you're really have some strong death anxiety and death denial, I wouldn't worry too much about that. I've got one from 1872 I've shared on social media many times. It's covered on the silver side of the plate, and it looks great. I mean, it's kind of messy around outside the mat, but it looks great. It hasn't peeled, blah, 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 that kind of thing. I mean, can you imagine all the things that can happen to our plates in the next 100 or 200 years? Number one, I don't think we're going to be around that long. And number two, we're definitely going to be dead. So I don't think we're going to care too much about that. But enough about that. Let me show you something here. Let's see. Oh, Chad says, I did some test plates this week to try some unvarnished versus varnished. I hear there's some interesting coloration. Yes. Let me show you this. I'm glad you brought this up. No problem, Chad. I'm happy to do this. Let me bring this up real quick. Since we have a little bit of time here, I blew through those calotypes fast. Let me pull this up, and we will show you what I'm talking about. I know a lot of you guys have seen this, and I apologize for the repetition, but I'm not going to play the whole video, but we'll definitely get some of it in here. And then I'm going to grab it, pinch it right here. There it is. And clear glass ambrotypes with asphaltum. And we're going to asphaltum the collodion side of the image. So this is going to be a couple of days, 2 days probably, video making here, because I have to allow the asphaltum to dry, and we won't be able to see those until tomorrow. So having said that, the second thing. So this is a video on my YouTube channel. Darkroom. show you what I've been doing, and that's why the videos have been. I don't have to worry about that. I'm going to just jump to the point where there's the image that I just made. So that's our image. You get that, right? You got that. Got to have some music in here. Couple of wrinkle from, and that can be somewhat strong. So I am using the gilsonite angel gilding here. I'm just drying the glass plate down here. I hope you can kind of see what I'm doing here. Doodads here. So mineral spirits dry overnight, and we'll come and look at it tomorrow and see. There's one part, or that is the 2 parts mineral spirits. So I'm just going to put that much, or about that much, in. It'll displace the mineral spirits of asphaltum. And I'll let it play for a second here. Way to mixing some of this up and letting that. God, that's a young guy right there. What happened to this old man talking on see what it looks like. See what you think about this stuff. Now this is really, really messy. So I would forewarn this forearm. Yes, Facebook user. I talk about that in this. If you dilute it too thin, you'll get spider tracks and you'll have to revarnish. If you go too thick, it won't dry. About getting around it, but there's the consistency of it right now. Pretty thick. Can you see that? Pretty thick. So I'm just going to take a couple of teaspoons of this. Now I've done this enough to know about where I'm at. This is so goopy and thick, it goes right to the bottom, so I can kind of tell. And again, we're not going to be super precise and get trip over that stuff, you know. I'm just going to, ooh, I almost missed that one. Oh, it's Samuel. Yes, exactly. Yeah, there you go, Samuel. Yeah, too thin gives you spider cracks. Too thick, it won't dry. And I talk about this. It's a 15 or 20 minute video. Put gloves on if you don't want this stuff on your hands. It won't hurt you, but boy, it is messy. You don't know that with what I'm doing with it right now, but once you start playing with this, you'll know exactly what I mean. And this can be very super runny, but you'll see it go on the little too runny. So that was a little too thin, so I'm going back in for a little more. It's good that you're watching this. You get an idea of this should get us there a long time, as long as it lasts. I think we're okay. Experience will teach you this stuff. And realize that last side. So get yourself something that's nice and level. I'm going to sit it on this cup when I'm finished. I'm going to pour it up here. I'm going to drain it back into the bottle itself. Okay, check this out. Here we go. And I'm going on the image side unvarnished, by the way. And I wanted to show the color. That's about all you need. The same process, A, B, C, and D for drain. Now I'm going to show you something here that's really critical. And that is, it's when you start draining it off here, it's going to get really thin up at that other end, right? So I drain until it starts dripping drops. There it is. And then I roll it back on itself. Unlike anything you'd ever want to do and anything else in this process. Yeah. Collodion or varnish. So you get the idea. Like so I set it down, I let it dry. Asphaltum and the mineral spirits, and now we back it, and tomorrow we'll come and take a look at it and see what we think. And I'll catch up with you then. Hello and welcome back. It's the next day. Yesterday I did the previous portion of this video and asphaltumed a clear glass ambrotype image. And I have that right here in front of me, and I just came out on my back porch here and grabbed a cup of tea, iced tea rather, a glass of iced tea, and just kind of kicking back out here. It's beautiful weather today, and I thought it'd be a nice way to end this video and show you this plate. Before I show you the plate, I want to talk to you a little bit about the advantages of doing this, and maybe even a potential disadvantage. I don't know. You can decide for yourself, but I like to think of the positive things that this does. And we'll start with the obvious. You saw I did not varnish that plate. I just went directly from the asphaltum right onto the collodion silver side. So, there'll be a debate about that, and we can have that debate, and we can see what happens over time with some of these images. Like I said, I've been using this method at least 10 years. I know I used it as early as 2003, late 2003, maybe early 2004.
So that's
But at
almost
that
20
time, I was
years.
using the
No
actual
problem.
ferrotype batter, as I call it, the actual tin type mixture that is actually in Chemical Pictures, my book, and Mineral Spirits. So we do it. If you really the plate before we actually throw it up here, the objects or people appear as a printed image.
There we go.
The image turned back the way it's supposed to be, and getting a little bit different color of the image. I think those are all good things. We'll take a look now at the photograph. I have it laying here on a paper towel, and I'm going to look at my monitor here and see. God, I hope that's in focus, and it looks good. There's some stuff on the glass there. Kind of ignore that. Really beautiful. That's my hand up here, by the way. That's my rubber gloved hand. I went down and held the top of that bottle for 30 seconds. This is a 1 minute, 45 second exposure at f11. And boy, it's just incredibly detailed. My eyes go here to this portion here of the lens, and then just I don't know if you can catch the detail here in the bottles. It's amazing. A little bit of texture in the old cameras back there as well too. Really beautiful. I think it has a lot to do the video with kind of appearance, but anyway, that's
So yeah, you get the idea. So we have again a debate about whether you should do the unvarnished image side, whether you should even do the glass side. If you do the glass side, there's no problem at all, right? But you get the advantage of, again, you get to laterally reverse. If you have text on a t-shirt or something, you'll be able to see that it's proper. You peer through the glass. It gives it a liquid, beautiful feeling. If it's unvarnished, you get this beautiful color. You can tell from that video, but there's a beautiful color, the varnish interacting with it, or the asphaltum interacting with the silver. It's really beautiful. It does. It's a color change, like really more pronounced than if you varnish and do that. But you're gonna get feedback on them either way. So Steve wanted to do something about. I had an occurrence recently varnishing plate. Instead of seeing full even coat of varnish, it seemed to avoid some of the middle tones and shadows, creating an almost solarized. Ooh, yeah, I think I've actually seen that before. Do you fix with KCN or sodium thiosulfate? I think I've seen it on sodium thiosulfate where there's some unwashed or not washed well enough plates. I think I've seen that kind of solarization after you varnish it. The varnish, the alcohol actually does something to the collodion, and you get some weird results that way. Let us know though. I couldn't tell you right off the bat on that, but. Oh, Jeffrey says Japanning is before making it. Yes, before you cover the Japanning is the asphaltum on the steel or iron plate. Then you bake it, and you could do a couple, 3, 4, 5, 10 coats if you want, and then it's hardened, and then you can pour your collodion on and go into your silver bath. Yes, exactly right. Yeah, okay, Steve. So Steve says sodium. Yeah, I've seen that before, and I think, don't quote me here, but I think it was something to do with the washing. And sometimes it's in the highlights too, but the middle tones going up to the highlights, something to do with the alcohol in the varnish and the silver being there or not there kind of thing. Yes, Steve, I had it too when spraying varnish. Interesting. Okay, there you go. I wish I knew exactly, but I can't really without going through everything. But look at that, Steve. Look at your fixing process. Try one with really fresh. Again, we're talking fresh. If you're using thiosulfate, it exhausts quickly if it's not mixed really strong. Use, if it's a really important plate, I make a special batch for fix, even with KCN. Troy says, I like to let them dry flat, have had problems with thinning at the top of the plate. Yes, you'll get this brown. You can do a chocolate color too if you let it go thin. It's kind of neat too, but if you get too thin, you might get spider cracks on it as it dries. And it's really important that you have it level. There is a self-leveling compound in the angel gilding asphaltum, I believe, but you still, once you dilute it down, now you got that solvent in there. So be aware of the leveling and how thick, how thin, and it takes you a couple of plates to get it down, but you'll get it. I love the look of the plates finished this way. They have such that. Yes, I totally agree. I just got an email yesterday or a message yesterday. People are constantly talking about this and how much they love it, how much it changes their ambrotypes. I don't want to sound like, we're pretentious and really full of ourselves. Our work is important, but it's not, we don't have to, I don't know, maybe if you have a gallery contract or something, you may not want to do this with the pieces they're buying. But come on, let's be honest. This is kind of fun and we can experiment a little bit. And if you like to look, they're going to be around long enough for you to live and die and pass them on to your kids. And who cares if they peel? I mean, at the end of the day. So anyway, absolutely, Steve. I wish we could help you more, but look at that fix. I think if I recall, it's been years, but if I recall right, those there's a balance here too. An over or under iodized collodion will produce some of that stuff too, but that's usually in the fix. But the varnishing, I recall, was sodium thiosulfate, washing, not enough, or I think it was not enough in a exhausted fix, and then having the alcohol do something in that with that silver in the middle tones going up to the highlights. That's what I recall. We're just a couple minutes early, but if you have any questions or you want to talk about something, I am totally game to do that. I do, going back to Calotypes, I do love them in the sense of the look and the feel. They can't break. They print really well if they're made well. If you wax them after you make them, it really helps as well too for clarity if you like that kind of stuff. I like that soft look. It's almost like an oil print look kind of thing. I like that kind of poetic look and feel of them. But it's something that you may be interested in doing, especially the Pelegry process. Not as complicated as some of the other ones. Definitely not a lot more archival than those first processes that Talbot actually did. They were not. Talk about non-archivability. That stuff was really bad. But it just depends on what you're after. If you like to tinker and toy and play with stuff, and you like to play in these old processes, I've got an acquaintance or a friend in New York that maybe I'll have come on, and I might do this next week if he's available, come on and talk about Calotype. He's done a lot of work in them. I would love to have Martin come on, but he doesn't speak much English. I don't speak French, and it's can get complicated that way. But go check his videos out. Definitely check his work out. The Dubai Transmutations is just an amazing body of work. And so let's see. I don't have anything else, ladies and gentlemen. That was all I had right there. So having said that, I think either next week we'll continue on with Calotypes. Maybe I'll try to get Christopher on if I can. If I can't, we're going to go to James Mudd's book on the colloidal albumin process and look at some of the stuff in there, which is really interesting, because once that darkroom is up down there, I'm going to be in with my GoPro, and I'll be filming some experiments, and we'll bring some of that to you every week, and you can just kind of watch and see what I do. All I'm going to do, really, just FYI, all I'm going to do after a short period of time, I'll do a few more of these maybe. I'm just going to be showing you what I'm doing every week and letting you see the results, answering questions. I'm going to go all the way back to Estabrook stuff. I'm going to work my way through some of these negative, Sutton's negative iodized processes, colloidal albumin on glass, colloidal albumin on glass. I'm going to do all of those. I'm going to do every single one of them. And I've got a notebook full of little stuff that I wanted to do for a very long time. So Oliver says, hey, Quinn, I did some negative redevelopment yesterday. Awesome. Is it normal that the highlights seem kind of milky? Only when looking through the negative, everything. Explain, what do you mean by milky? Highlights should be solid. If you do transmitted light, you should not see, they should either be black. Sometimes they'll have a red, depending on, how much citric acid you use. Sometimes they'll have a red tint to them. But milky, no. And the void areas or the shadow areas should be perfectly clear glass. You should be able to see your finger clearly right through the glass. That's the biggest thing. If you didn't fog the plate, chemically fog or light fog the plate, and you redeveloped, you're just going to have a flat image. But if you have clear glass on the shadow and dense on the highlights, it doesn't really matter what color it is. It's going to be black or red, kind of something like that. But let us know. So yeah, that's kind of the future, and hopefully it'll come fast. Again, I'm working through all of this, and I just really want to get to the point. I've covered so much stuff on this show that it's really frustrating not to be able to go out and do it and show you. I mean, a lot of 100 previous videos are about me working in my darkroom versus sitting here chatting. Like seeing the bookshelf fall in the work. Yes, thank you, Chad. Me too. I'm telling you, this has been a journey for us. I'll just really quickly recap. For the last year and a half, we sold our house up in the Denver metro area in a year ago, June. So a little over a year and a few months ago. It was a long process. We'd just gone into COVID at that time. We worried about it. We worried about getting down here and getting the house built and put up and getting all of our infrastructure in, our well, our water, our sewer system, our pump house, all of this stuff that to live, right? Our heating, all this stuff to live. And then I'm talking about this building, this outbuilding that I want to build for a darkroom and a studio just dedicated to that. Kind of took a back burner because we have to have a place to live. And so all these little things coming in, whether it's filling my bookshelf back up, putting my building up, getting my darkroom framed, all that stuff, we're just so close to having all this done that it feels like I'm coming back into my life now. Not that I regret anything. I don't regret doing any of that, but it's not something I want to be doing. I want to be doing photography and a little bit of bladesmithing. That's what I like to do. I like to make images, and I like to make knives. Those are the two things that I really, really love doing. So we're almost there. Stand Up for Judas says, I almost got a solarized result with varnishing when I experimented with not heating up the sander rack. Yes. And I had somewhere not to heat it, but that was crap. But yes, that's part of that problem we were talking about with Steve. The alcohol is more active that way. You're not burning, the heat allows a lot of the evaporation of that solvent. So cold plates, I think that's what it was years ago. Cold plates, exhausted fix, used fix, and not washing enough and then varnishing it. So thank you for sharing that. Stand Up for Judas. Good to see you, by the way, as well. Your darkroom, did you insulate the concrete floor? Just curious. I did not insulate. That's a 5-inch, basically 12 centimeter deep concrete pour. I did not insulate the floor. There's really no need to.
I'm on rock up here, the Rocky Mountains, and it's very rocky here. I'm on rock up here, so it's not, it's not going to make a big difference. And to be honest with you, I'm only going to work in that darkroom from, well, this year will be a little different, but from really steadily from May-ish, the middle of May to the 1st of November, because it's all natural light. I'm not going to have, there's no power. I'm going to use solar power. Water's going to be trucked in, right? I'm not going to use any of these modern conventions. It's all going to be just like back in the day. And so in the wintertime, we have really nice days up here. This year, I'll definitely be in there in the wintertime on the nice days doing stuff. But really, it's going to be a spring, summer, and autumn studio. And so heat and cool, we don't need any cooling up here. We don't have an air conditioner in our house. You don't need it up here. Highs are, 23 in the summer, right? I mean, 70, 75 degrees in the summer, as the hot as it gets. So I don't have that issue. I won't be in there. And if I am in there, I'll be doing something on a nice day. So no floor heating. Obviously, the box is insulated, and I look at the temperature down there. It was 15 degrees yesterday in there. So it's 15 to 18 degrees. It's like perfect for working in that. And the studio area where I'll have my desks and everything set up, and my actual image making area, I let all that light and sun blaze in from the north. Big, beautiful north actinic light. So you guys will see all of this. I promise you, it's going to be fun. I'm happy to share it, and I'm even more happy to share what I'll do experimental wise and show you. So if you find something interesting, because I'm on a journey myself. I'm on a journey, like I said last week, to find the negative making process that I want to use for this project I'm doing to make Rollins oil prints with. And I'll run through all those tests. I got 2 stacks of this beautiful J-Lane whole plate, 1.3 millimeter glass. I'm excited. I'm just chomping at the bit. So we will get to that. It'll be soon. But next week, like I said, we'll either do the James Mudd book or we'll continue on with the Calotypes. If you have anything during the week, like Jeffrey graciously sends me stuff, I greatly appreciate it. And you want to share news-wise, photographically, or otherwise, it's relevant or human-wise, send it along. I'm happy to share it on here. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me. I wish you health and happiness through the week. I hope to see you next Saturday with some more, hopefully, interesting stuff. And share your stuff along through the week. Send your questions, whatever you need. And I'll see you next Saturday. Bye-bye. Thanks.